Welcome to another edition of Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. This show was originally created from the one of more than 300 motivational quotes that I had created from the contents of my books. With studying human behavior for over 40 years, I was always curious how words just landed from one person to another. Were they words that just laid there on the page, or were there a conversation to be had? Well, we meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hi, my name is Kevin McLemore. I am your show host. I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Breakthrough, Tara Elizabeth, the voice of our show, Otis Spencer, Mazan, Adina, Denise, Dwayne, Lois, and Christopher and Gilda James. Hey, based on our interpretation or our perception of what this quote is, it's the reason why we have this show. So without any further ado, let me turn over the mic to our voice of our show, where he will deliver our first quote of the day. Otis, have your way with us.
Grand Rising, everyone. Happy Sunday. Today's quote: the only real mistake is the one from which we learn nothing.
Christopher, oh, this is such a great, powerful quote. And again, let me thank you for your dedication and your service to this country. Without your sacrifice, the sacrifices we make or are making today will become unnoticed. We thank you for serving as a public servant. Thank you for your service, sir. So, Christopher, I'm just curious, how's this quote land on you? Where did it come from?
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the introduction. Hey, we are brought into this world knowing nothing. Okay, we've got people who mind over us, our parents, and later their teachers and mentors. But we're all basically feeling out the world, running without an owner's manual, if you want to say it that way. But we are constantly learning, okay, or in order to progress, we are constantly learning. There are those, I guess, amongst us who don't learn, and then there's certain species that don't learn. I've got this picture of my grandmother's dog who would chase his tail just to bite it and then howl out in pain, and then he's chasing his tail again. The whole idea is you're going to do something silly, disastrous, whatever, but you learn from it. There's something that's going to be taught in that lesson. Now, our mentors, our teachers, our parents try oftentimes to save us that pain by teaching us from their own mistakes. But being hard-headed as we are, we have to make our own mistakes. The thing is, you should never make the same mistake. I remember this Disney movie. Was it Disney? Zootopia, whatever it was, where Shatara sung the song New Mistakes. You should never make the same mistake twice. And if you proceed on learning constantly and discover a mistake, okay, learn from it. Take what that mistake has to offer for you, and then keep going forward. And in my weird point of view, go on to make a new mistake. But the whole idea is you're constantly learning. And the only real mistake is where you cause an incident or whatever it is, and you don't learn from it. Teacher will always tell you there are no stupid questions. We had an amendment to that. Yes, the only stupid question is the question asked and answered and asked again. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just don't make that bad mistake where you're asking that same question that was already answered and you're asking again.
My grandmother used to say, "A hard head made a soft behind." I think that was her variation of the same quote. She just didn't have the quote in front of her, but we got the message. Trust us, with some of us have Southern upbringing, we do know what that meant. All right. So I'm going to get a female's perspective and view on this quote. So I'm going to ask Mazan, how's this quote land on her? And let's see what the women on our panel will say about this quote. the leaders of our world, the strength, the soul, the seed, the greatness within is all a woman. All right.
Okay.
Mazan, how does this land on you?
I took the time this week to actually write it down. So the only real mistake is the one from which we learn nothing. So I'm going to put a little philosophical side to this one. Life is a lesson. We are born. And before we experience death, our pages in our life book must be filled with many lessons that we learn from mistakes. If we did not make mistakes, then we did not live. Everything teaches us something, and not all mistakes are bad. In the case of pregnancies, some may think of it as a mistake, and others, it's a blessing from God. In my case, it's a blessing from God. I'm going to stick with relationships, and I'm going to continue with abusive spouse. If an abusive spouse, there's a couple, and repeatedly keeps making mental or physical abuse and keeps saying, oh, it's a mistake. Oh, it's a mistake. The spouse that's receiving the abuse, either mental or physical, and if they keep staying in that relationship and keep saying, oh, it's a mistake. Yes, it's a mistake. I'll let it go. No, they're not learning from anything. It's from both parties. The one who's giving the abuse, because that's their way of just covering up and saying, oh, it's a mistake. Oh, I'm not going to do it again. No, that's a habitual thing that they're doing. It's not a mistake at that time. You're not learning from it. And the person that's receiving the abuse, it's the same situation. They're not learning. They're not saying, hey, this is no longer a mistake. This is a mistake that is continuous, or this is a mistake I need to start to learn from, and I need to get out of this relationship. So I'm kind of just putting a spin on it, relationship wise. Mistakes, you have to learn in a sense that, okay, when is a mistake too much? Just a cover up. Is this word of a mistake that I keep saying, oh, I'm so sorry, it's a mistake, I'm so sorry? No, it becomes at a time where both parties, are the person who keeps saying it's a mistake, it's a mistake, don't just use the word that it's a mistake. Start to say, it truly is something I did. It truly is a mistake. It is something that went wrong. I need to learn from it. I need to better myself or help a situation. So I kind of took it a little different.
No, the quote itself, as simple as it is, it's also complicated because it has a lot of layers. I'm going to probably go repeat this 100 times because I had a lot of wise people in my life. My father used to say, sorry was an excuse until you did it again. And he
Yes.
said that when I asked what the correct answer was, is to acknowledge that you were part of the problem and then work on the solution and try not to repeat it, but also understand that we are human, and to be human is to err sometimes. The
Right.
key thing is acknowledgement. So when I go through this, and I know that when I ask Dwayne this, there's many layers of his life where there's been more questions than answers, and sometimes mistakes have been made, especially as an athlete, covering those things, and sometimes we learn the hard way. So, Dwayne, um, if I were to, throw this quote over your way after following both Christopher and Mazan, how would this quote land on you?
Yeah, so I believe the quote lands on me a little bit differently from the athletic world because mistakes are always made. We try to minimize them as much as possible. Um, the other part of it is like I'm a huge Art of the War. I love that book. Like it's one of my favorite books, and so I actually have a quote that he talks about. And if you just look at it from the book of just war, he wins his battles by making no mistakes. And making no mistakes is what establishes the certainty of victory. For it means conquering an enemy that is already defeated. And so this quote, like, is something that I actually used to have near one of my lockers. And what it means is to be accountable for my mistakes, to take ownership. So those mistakes are lessons. And the lessons is that what we were talking about earlier was the learning aspect. But as an athlete, I knew every time I stepped on the floor, I was going to make a mistake. It was what I did afterwards to either minimize it. So with basketball, there's only two true outcomes of a shot. You either hit it or you miss it. And so what I can control is my effort. When I miss, I can go run and rebound and do the right type of things and not allow something that I know is a 50-50 chance every time I do dictate the style of the game, my demeanor, those type of things. And so mistakes are going to happen. It's that learning lesson that we get. But with basketball and like those type of things, when you know that outcomes are only like or like either a hit or miss, and there's no other outcome other than that. So when you do it, you've got to expect the misses. So you just have to learn and you have to keep your effort. And I think that's extremely important, is when we do make mistakes, is we allow ourselves to keep the same type of effort, no matter if we were right or wrong. And so I think for me, the quote is about just pure learning. And it's how we were talking a couple of weeks ago about the life lessons that you learn between the 1 to 8 year old range. And so one thing that I learned was I can control my effort, and how I control my effort actually is going to control what I get out of whatever I'm doing, whether it's basketball, whether it's reading a book, whether it's listening. I think that's just extremely important, is to know that effort is the main thing that you can control.
Life is it's sport. And I've always said that if we lived our life the same way that games are played into those rules, life would be a lot more fun. And the commitment level to our life and the outcome would be a lot different. I appreciate your take on that. Otis, if you don't mind, before I swing over to Adina, as to for our listeners that have just tuned in, to give us the quote one more time with that silky smooth voice of yours. Wait a minute, look at me.
The only real mistake is the one from which we learn nothing.
All right, Adina, how's this quote land on you?
Okay, so I have 2 points. There's one concept that I teach called the integration speed. The integration speed is the speed at which a person learns lessons. Some people's integration speed is slow. Some people's integration speed is fast. And when I work with couples, usually what causes a couple to uncouple is because their integration speeds are different, vastly different. So one party could be picking up lessons and evolving quite quickly, whereas the other party can do the same, but it takes a much longer time. And in general, friends and people that have similar integration speeds are people that hang out together. Slower integrators hang out together, faster integrators hang out together. And it's like the speed of evolution, the speed of learning, or in a classroom, like what track you're in the classroom. So that's one point that I wanted to share. The second was the idea of egoic defense. Egoic defense is protecting your mask, protecting your perfection, protecting yourself egoically, and it stops people from taking accountability, stops people from admitting that they need to improve, for admitting that they were the cause of some sort of distress, harm, or a mistake, essentially. The more defensive, the more protective, the more egoically driven somebody is, the less they can take accountability. They are living in a perfectionistic mask. And we call that narcissistic. So the more they're on a narcissistic spectrum, the higher the narcissistic spectrum, the more egoic defense they have, the less they can really be accountable. And it takes a lot of healing to be able to shed egoic defenses and to let that part go, and to humanize oneself as part of a collective and realize we're all in relationship to one another. And if we want to grow together as a collective, we have to take accountability. And that's a key to growth, accountability, and also admitting, no one's perfect. We're all here to learn together. So that's what I wanted to share.
I am so glad that I am a student of this world because I've learned some words that I didn't even know that existed in the book. Thank you. Um, it's amazing. Isn't it surprising how you can take a quote that seems so simple and then the quote itself, when you peel back the layers, has so many different layers, depends on who you talk to and where they're at in that moment. So we're going to find out the moment where Denise is at right now, since we have more women, and this is Women's Month on this panel than males. Denise, I hope you're feeling well. I hope things are doing well, and we're so happy to see you again. I don't know for
Thank
our
you.
listeners that follow and have missed Denise. She had a horrific car crash, and that she has been recovering. So, if those of you that have prayed for her speedy recovery, we thank you. Naheem is going through illness himself. So, those of you that are missing him, our prayers go out to him and get ready for his next project. So, Denise, how does this quote land on you? Do we make mistakes and we learn nothing, or we continue to make mistakes?
I'm glad to be back. So I had the accident after I had bronchitis, so that's why my voice is like this. So thank you for all the prayers. So here is God knew that I had a purpose. So I'm really glad. Yesterday was very emotional time because like I saw the
Denise, let
from
me
the
do one
car.
favor. Let me do one favor because your head says when you lean into it, I think we're losing the audio. We can keep
You're
you back
losing it
right there. Stay right
like
there.
this,
Yep.
like this. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Um, so I'm doing better, and thank you. I'm glad to be here. For me, the scope is like Adina said, accountability. You have to be able to be accountable for your mistake because mistake is supposed to be something that you learn. And if you can't hear me,
Yeah, you lean forward
no,
again.
like this, it's probably my computer.
Yeah, just stay right there because when you move it, we lose you.
Yeah, it's my computer had problem with the sound.
All right, we can
So
hear you
let
loud
me
and
see
clear
if I
right
take
there.
this off right there.
Yeah, we can
Okay,
hear
let
you.
me take this off. Yeah. Can
All
you hear
right,
me
so
now? I'm
we can
like
hear
the
you now.
commercial
Thank
now.
you. All
Okay.
right.
So for me, like I said, I'm gonna go with idea. Like I said, that's what I was thinking, accountability. And when you make a mistake, you need to learn from it, not repeat it. Because if you keep repeating it, that means you don't care. Like sometimes when you hurt people's feelings, you keep on repeating that. And when somebody tells you what you did hurt my feelings, you need to take accountability for that and change your behavior. Because if you don't change your behavior, you're gonna keep making the same mistake. And for me, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've learned and I try not to make the same mistake. And that's what I tell my kids too, like learn from your mistake. That's a lesson for you. Like learn from it and do better. And as a teacher too, I do my students too the same thing because when I grade them, like especially when they make a mistake, I make them look at it like why did you make the mistake, what can you do better to change it, especially when it comes to writing. Like writing for English as second language is one of the hardest thing to do because it takes you 7 to 10 years to be proficient on that. And some of my students, they're like, I keep making a mistake. I keep making a mistake. I'm like, is it the same mistake? Is it something you could change? What can I help you with? So you need to look at your mistake and say, why are you making the same mistakes? Why it keeps repeating itself? And if you don't take accountability, if you don't feel sorry for what you're doing and take the next step to do better, um, it's going to be repeated because you didn't learn the lesson. You need to do better.
All right. All right. Thank you. And to our listeners, audio sometimes is not perfect. We have people all over the country that is on this podcast, and we appreciate your patience. We appreciate your share. And again, it is true. I think one of the biggest problems we have with our personal life and our professional life and the way that we view life itself is sometimes we don't hold ourselves accountable. we keep raising the bar for everyone else, but we are too afraid to step on the next round and to take a good look of ourselves and say, what role did we play in the conversation or the situation, or what role are we playing in this game we call life? So I'm going to warm up the stage a little bit more. Most people know him as Dr. Breakthrough. We know him as our brother Stan Harris. He is, I'm going to tell you, if you've ever got a chance to talk to Stan after the show or before he does his podcast on there, you'll stand in front of greatness. You'll stand in the light of your faith. You will hear a conversation that you're yet to be prepared for. And believe it or not, at the end of the day, you will break through. Stan, how does this quote land on you?
Well, hey, first of all, thank you for those kind words. And I always say, if you can spot it, it's because you got it. So I appreciate it, man. The quote landed on me. Again, it's pretty simple, but it's pretty powerful. And when you think about the fact, and I think Sister Adina mentioned it, so what is it that keeps people from learning? That's the first thing, because all of us make mistakes. And the way I break down the word mistakes is MIS, mistakes. So mistakes. So you just retake again. But if you want to retake by learning something, then you can retake better. So what stops us from making mistakes? As she mentioned, ego. And one of my acronyms for ego is edging guidance out. Ego, edging greatness out. Ego, edging growth out. Ego stands for everything God opposes. And so the ego is not your amigo. And so a lot of times people can't learn or won't learn from the mistakes because of their ego that blocks them from learning. And sometimes it's blaming, right? The acronym for blame is being lazy and manifesting excuses, right? And so a person can't learn from their mistakes if they're always blaming it on someone else. You know, Adam's like, well, no, it's Eve, it was the woman you gave me, right? And then we come to that taking personal responsibility. It's amazing. You know, Adam said, no, it was the woman. And the woman said, no, it was the serpent. And the serpent was the only one that had enough responsibility. Like, okay, yeah, I did it. Right? So you can only learn once you get through the excuses. You can only learn once you get through the blame shifting. You can only learn once you break through your ego. And then once you learn, now you've been empowered. And so, again, the acronym or wording for excuses or tools of incompetence, rather, used to build mountains of nothingness. And those who subscribe to them seldom amount to be anything. And so I found out years ago, I can either make excuses or I can make progress. I can't make both. And making excuses may allow you to feel good for a little while, but making progress allows you to actually make something happen that'll change your life. And then it's all about taking responsibility. The way we learn is by taking responsibility. And the way I take the word responsibility is you break it down. Respond with ability. And so when we break through our ego and we break through the blame shifting, and we break through the excuses and we take responsibility, we respond with the ability we have. Now those mistakes is something we learn from, and we become stronger and better. And now it's a launching pad. And by the way, true success is built upon quote unquote failure and mistakes that we learn from. That's how the quote landed on me. It's breakthrough time.
All right, Dr. Breakthrough. Dr. Breakthrough. This is exciting. They hear so many quotes by so many highly intelligent people. And I am lucky enough to be in presence of greatness from all over this globe. Otis, I'm going to hit you up one more time to hear this quote. I'm going to hear from the sounds of a Jamaican accent on this quote as soon as you deliver for our listeners again. Lois, get ready. You're up. Otis?
The only real mistake is the one from which we never learn nothing.
All right. How do we make mistakes over there in the motherland over in Jamaica? How you doing, gal?
So we make mistakes by a wise man learns from his mistakes, but a wiser man learns from the mistakes of others.
Right.
That's
A
it.
wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And that is very profound.
Thank
You
you.
know, 6 hours of playing tennis, 2 hours of playing pickleball. To some of us, it's just a marathon. To this person, it's just opening day. It's a sprint. Tara Elizabeth, all the way from the West Coast. And I'm telling you, we start at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for someone to get up from California to get on this podcast, and we got brothers from Texas, we got people from New Jersey, Connecticut, all over the place. Tara, all right. I hope you're not tired yet. No, you don't get tired. All right. You wear your competition out, but you don't get tired. How does this quote land on you?
So the way the quote landed on me, the only real mistakes is the one from which we learn nothing. The first thing I thought is the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And I said, that's me every day of the week. I play a lot of tennis. I do a lot of running, a lot of cycling. I pay very good money for tennis coaches who will tell me, I need you to do it this way. And for whatever reason, in my own head, I go, I know I can do this better. So I'm paying people to show me how to be a better tennis player, but I want to do it my way. And a lot of times it comes from just being an adult and not wanting to take direction. And I always say to myself, you are getting in your own way. I don't like relearning something because, as we know, when you relearn something, you got to practice it to get good at it. So initially, I'm really good at doing, or at least in my mind, I'm really good at doing what I do. And when a coach comes and they, try to change my serve, and I'm in competition and I don't like my serve, I feel like I'm getting beat up because my serve isn't as powerful. They'll say, keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. It'll kick in, you'll get better. So I am my own worst enemy. And so when I heard the quote, I said, well, this is me, because I constantly am not recognizing and learning from my own mistakes. But I'm getting better. I'm just 60. I got another 60 years to go. I got time. And that's
We are
on me.
we are all students of our own life, and then we are students and teachers, professors, and coaches of this life that we live and that we share. And sometimes a quote is so simple, and then sometimes it's so complicated. But the answer, both of these, either simple or complicated, we're going to ask Gilda James, how's this quote land on her? And we'll see how simple or complicated it has. And believe it or not, Tara, I'm just going to tell you, don't feel ashamed of your game. All right.
And you're beautiful for 60. Beautiful.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Grand Rising.
Right.
Okay. Listening to everyone's turn on mistakes. I thought a mistake is only what truly is a mistake. If you don't learn from it. So what I'm saying is a mistake is only truly a mistake only if you don't learn from it. That's what I learned from.
You're exactly right.
Nothing.
That's what I wrote.
Oh, okay. No, you didn't. No,
Hey,
you
Christopher, I just want to tell you, you may have to pay for that mistake you just made. You should let your wife have the moment.
Such is life. Such is life.
But anyway, like I said, on this show, not only do we get a great education, there's a lot of entertainment and fun on here because we are family through good times and bad times. And I've known and learned a lot from all these people on here. And I've made a couple of mistakes myself. And the nice thing about having people that you trust, they hold you accountable. All right. So thank God I haven't made a mistake in correcting or collecting these wonderful people in my life. I am very grateful. And if I had to do it all over again, I would like to wake up and have the silky, sexy sound of the voice of our show. But he is an original, can't be duplicated, can't be copied, but not at the level that he's at. And to make a word sound like a symphony, only Otis can do it. Otis, we have come to that time in that show. It's just you and me, bro.
All right.
How does quote land on you?
Well, this quote actually makes me think of another quote. Some people make things happen. Some people watch things happen, and others sit there and wonder what happened. Because the people that make things happen, they try again until they're successful. So people that watch things happen, hopefully they're learning from the other person's mistake, as Lois had just said. But yet there are some people that are just so dumbfounded, they do it over again and say, what happened? They're clueless. And that's how it landed on me.
Right. So, God, there's so many different ways that you can turn the page on this quote. When you look at Lois, you look at Denise, Adina, Dwayne, Tara, Dr. Breakthrough, Otis, Christopher, and Gilda and Mazan on how these quotes, all different perspectives and all different interpretations. And when I sit back and look at what I thought I was going to say and what I actually would like to say, I have to go back to when my father taught his boys. I was 13 in my family. 5 of us are young men, how to ride a bike. And I remember watching my brother be pushed down the hill, and I watched him fall. And my father just stared without a spoken word to get back on your bike and try again. I remember when it came my turn to learn how to ride a bike, he pushed me down the hill. My father made a couple of mistakes that day. One, he allowed me to go after watching my brothers go out in the world and fall, get back up, scrape their knees, and cry. I learned from that. And I said, one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to stay on my bike. The mistake my father made is that at 559 Cedarhurst, our street corner ran into a major thoroughfare. He failed to tell me how to stop riding my bike. And as I coasted towards the corner, I escaped the initial falling off my bike. In order to keep from running to Hoover Avenue, I took a power slide and fell off my bike. And as much as I wanted to cry, I got up and got back on my bike and started to pedal back home. Life teaches you valuable lessons. You either learn them as a very small child or you learn them going through the process of life itself. When you look at a tombstone, you see the day that you're born, and in the middle is that dash. That is our life. That dash represents every good time, every bad time, every mistake, every time we doubted ourselves through life. Once we receive that calling home, we get another date. And that is the answer to every single question that we ever had. Mistakes and lessons to learn are no longer valuable, because then we get a chance to live out our experiences in eternity. So understand the power of your words, hold yourself accountable, take some risks, big ones, small ones, learn from them, repeat them over again. And the ones that caused you pain and heartache, toss them aside and only celebrate the events of those mistakes you learn from and that you make better. Is a better product, a better person, a better human being. But at the end of the day, your mistakes makes for a better life. So this is how that quote landed on me. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Motivational Sundays with Kevin and Friends. I will always tell you and remind you, to make mistakes, you must be confident and address your own anxieties. To forgive yourself, you must hold yourself accountable. We've heard that over and over again. To learn, you must unlearn some stuff. To exist, you have to do what these people have done on this show. Show up every single day and show up as more. When you are mindful of life and the role that you play in it, you just represent the great things that God has given you. And without your faith, you can't make mistakes. That's what life's all about. And so my grandfather always said, when you get to a point in life that you can help someone else out, it is your duty to do so. He said, reach one, teach one, And with that said, we what?
Fade to black.
Make sure
Ladies and
you
gentlemen.
come back.
All right. See you guys all next week. Thank you, everyone.